always just be reevaluating that decision, not thinking that because you've set down a certain pathway that you need to persist no matter what happens. You should always be reevaluating. And then finally, we always need to be thinking of what the best decision is for our pet, not just for us. Watching your dog having a seizure is an incredibly distressing thing to witness, but what can you do to help stop their seizures, help control their seizures if they're not having a fit because they're epileptic? Well, that's the question that I'm answering today about an older Chihuahua who has kidney disease and is also having seizures. But before I get into that question, here's the intro.
Welcome to Call the Vet, the show that answers all your dog and cat questions so they can live healthier, happier lives. And here's your host, veterinarian Dr. Alex Avery.
Hi, welcome to Call the Vet. This is the 37th episode, and I'm really happy that you're joining me today. If we've not met before, I'm Dr. Alex, and I'm the veterinarian behind ourpetshealth.com. And on this show, I answer any question that you have about your dog or your cat's health so that you can make better informed decisions about keeping them healthy, about treating their disease, or about getting them the help that they need for whatever life throws their way. So I'm really grateful that you're here sharing your valuable time with me. And if you're not already, make sure you hit that subscribe button on your podcasting app so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. And also, if you've got a burning question that you'd like answered, if there's something that you've always wondered about why your dog or cat does a certain thing, or the best thing that you can do to keep them healthy and happy, then just head over to callthevet.org and submit your question to be featured on a future upcoming show. But anyway, that's it from me for the intro. Let's get into today's question. So Beatrice wrote in with this one saying, "Hi, my Chihuahua is 17 years old and she started throwing up some white stuff. Then she stopped eating. Next day she threw up white foam and slimy green stuff. And last she stopped drinking water. She took her to the vet and was diagnosed with kidney failure today. She started having seizures last night. Is there anything that she can do to relieve the seizures?" So it's a really difficult situation that Beatrice is in. She's got her old faithful companion who's been with her for 17 years. So she's a really old dog, which is testament to the level of care that Beatrice has provided her over the years. And I guess we'll start off by saying, there is a number of different things that can cause seizures. Certainly kidney failure is one of them, but we can break them down into kind of several different categories, which is something to consider if your dog or your cat ever has a seizure. So that's toxins, so poisons, eating something horrible. So something like slug bait would be a classic one of those. Infections, so like a meningitis, organ disease. So this is where kidney failure fits in, but that could be liver disease. It could be a hormonal abnormality. So the pancreas not working properly, for example. It could be a brain lesion, so thinking things like a brain tumour, a mass on the brain, and then epilepsy being that fifth cause of seizures. So really controlling seizures, it involves getting that diagnosis right in the first instance and making the diagnosis as to what is causing that seizure, and then being able to treat or manage or even cure that condition effectively. So when there is a disease that's causing the seizures other than epilepsy, then actually just giving anti-seizure medication alone, so that could be phenobarbital, it could be Pexion, imepitoin, there's lots of different anti-seizure medication, but giving that alone will often fail to control the seizures adequately or as well as we would like them to be controlled. And that's going to be especially the case in long-term management of a condition. So if your dog has eaten something and they're having seizures, then yes, giving anti-seizure medication while that toxin is kind of being removed from the body will definitely help and is definitely part of treatment. And even with an organ disease, if in the very early stages while we're just trying to stabilize your pet, then anti-seizure medication is going to play an important role. But for a long-term management, for a good long-term prognosis, we need to actually try and treat that underlying condition. I say except with epilepsy, because with epilepsy, really what we are doing is giving anti-seizure medication. That is our main treatment. There are other things that we can maybe do to help reduce the likelihood of seizures, and those are becoming maybe more and more apparent kind of as more research is done into that condition, but things like diet can play a big role here. But all of the other things, we want to be trying to tackle that underlying cause that has resulted in the seizures in the first place. So with Beatrice's dog, with her wee Chihuahua, we know that there's kidney disease involved. So absolutely kidney disease can cause seizures. So the kidneys, they help to just regulate hydration, so the water content within the body's salt levels, and they filter out numerous toxins from the blood. So they play a really important role. There's lots of other things that they do, and they're absolutely critical. You won't be surprised to hear, with lots and lots of different processes within the body. So in advanced kidney failure, then seizures can result from the buildup of toxins within the blood. Now, really, this is typically only seen right at the end of a long-term long-term kidney failure, or if there has been a sudden failure, so acute kidney injury here. And an example of this would be due to something like antifreeze toxicity, which is pertinent at this time of year in cats. If the kidneys are really knocked out very acutely, very suddenly, because of a poison, in this case, it could be because of an infection up in the kidneys, then also you may get this seizure activity. But the bottom line is that seizures are really a sign of severe and advanced kidney damage, and the prognosis is unfortunately going to be really poor in a dog who is having seizures because they've got kidney disease. So with that in mind, whenever we have a really serious disease, we need to be realistic about the likelihood of recovery and whether ongoing treatment is going to result in an improvement in a pet's condition, whether we're going to be able to manage that condition successfully or not. And whether the condition itself is curable or not as well. So in the case of kidney disease, with the exception of really acute kidney injury where there may be some reversibility in the damage that's been done, although by the time we get to seizures, that's going to be fairly doubtful. But if once the kidney damage has taken place, the kidneys really, they can't regenerate, and so we're left with that level of damage. So we've got to be very mindful of the likelihood of being able to successfully manage and treat a condition in the long term. It might very well be in the short term that there are things we can do to reduce those seizures, to control those seizures, but are they likely to help in the long term? Is it going to be a case of your dog or your cat being hospitalized for a period of time? That could be days, it could even be weeks, trying to get everything under control, when the reality is that as soon as they get sent home, they're just going to deteriorate again very rapidly. And is that fair to put your pet through? So it's vital then that you work in conjunction with your veterinarian. And this goes for, so many different conditions, and pretty much everything I talk about in these podcasts. It's going to be vital that you work really closely with your vet. You have an honest chat about what the outcome is likely to be, what the different options are with investigation, with treatment, with, surgeries, what the difference those things are going to make to your pet's long-term prognosis. Because just because we can do something doesn't mean that we necessarily should be doing it. That's something that I really strongly believe. And I think we're seeing that in the human health field as well. We are potentially, and this is going to be personal opinion, but very often we are over-medicalising very serious conditions when actually the likelihood of recovery is very, very poor, especially when we're reaching the natural kind of upper limits of our lives anyway. So this Chihuahua, she's 17 years old. She's a very old girl, and whether it's fair to put her through an awful lot of treatment is something that you need to be open and honest with your vet. Now, clearly, I don't know all of the ins and outs of the situation here, and it may very well be that it's thought that the potential outcome is very good with appropriate treatment, but it's important that you're aware of that when you're putting your pet through any intervention. And costs have also got to come into play as well. When a pet is very ill, then often the costs can quickly mount up, and so you need to be sure that you're both able to afford that, and also it's something that you're willing to go through given the likelihood of success. So whatever decision you make, decisions always need to be reevaluated as well. And that could be on a weekly basis, it could be on a daily basis, or in the case of a very sick pet, even on an hourly basis. So, making sure that you've got your phone with you, that your vet has your new number if you've changed address or if you've changed phone, and always just be reevaluating that decision, not thinking that because you've set down a certain pathway that you need to persist no matter what happens. You should always be reevaluating. And then finally, we always need to be thinking of what the best decision is for our pet, not just for us. It's a very difficult situation to find yourself in when you're dealing with a serious disease, no matter what your pet's age is, but especially when they're older, we need to be realistic and we need to think what is best for them, because it may well be that the time has come to let them go. And these are all incredibly difficult situations to find yourself in, and very difficult decisions to make especially when you're having to make them in the heat of the moment, emotions are running high and it's really challenging. And, I very much hope that you have got a vet who you trust and who you can confide in and who can help you through this difficult time. If you do have an older pet, even if they're not struggling, then I do also have a couple of really comprehensive articles about palliative care in the first place. So that is for your pet if they are unwell, if they have a condition, especially a chronic long-term condition that maybe they're struggling, or even if they've just been diagnosed with that. Palliative care is definitely something that you should be aware of, the different options, and should be considering. But then I've also got a very full article that takes you through the steps that you need to be thinking about to decide if it is time to say goodbye to your pet. Like I say, it's a very emotionally charged situation to find yourself in. And unfortunately, all too often I hear from people that their biggest regret is actually holding on too long and putting their pet through things that actually in hindsight, they only put them through so that they could be with their pet for longer, and actually they weren't in their pet's best interest. So I will leave links to those two articles in the show notes, and I hope that they will provide a little bit of relief for you and help you make any difficult decisions that you need to make. And I think it's important that even if your pet is healthy, especially if they are old, then you should be thinking about those things, just so that when the time does come, and hopefully that won't be for a long time, but when the time does come, you'll be much more comfortable making that difficult decision.
Get your questions answered at callthevet.org.
So it's a really challenging topic that we've discussed today, and unfortunately I can't always give advice that is going to result in a happy ending, but I strongly believe in being open and honest about likely prognosis and about what's best for your pet. So I think challenging topics like this are really important for any pet owner to consider, even when they've got a young pet, because unfortunately the reality of having a dog or a cat in our lives is that their lifespan is much less than ours. And so at some point in the future, you are going to be in a tricky, emotionally challenging situation. And I hope that even just by listening to this now, hopefully years before you're going to need to use this information, it's going to just mean that you're better set and more comfortable when the time does come. So I hope you found it interesting. Make sure you check out the show notes for the links to those other articles that I've mentioned about the palliative care and when that time to say goodbye is. Let me know what you think as well in the comments to the show notes. So I'd really love to hear your thoughts on this and kind of discussion around end-of-life care, perhaps. Let me know your thoughts. And you can also find me on Twitter or on Instagram, where my handle is @OurPetsHealth, and I'd love to see you over there, even if it's just to say hi. But that's it from me for this week's question. Until next time, this is Call the Vet. I'm Dr. Alex. Take care.
You've been listening to Call the Vet. Be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode of the show that answers all of your pet questions.